The Galactic Council's emergency session was in its fourth hour when Lena Hart's head began to droop. Around the circular chamber, representatives from 73 species sat in varying states of attention, their translators humming softly as Ambassador Keelthor of the Vraxian Collective droned on about trade route regulations in Sector 9. Lena tried to focus. She really did. But her last sleep cycle had been 32 hours ago, interrupted by 3 separate crisis alerts, 2 diplomatic incidents, and 1 malfunctioning life support system that had threatened to turn the human quarters into a freezer. Being humanity's junior liaison officer to the Council meant being available at all hours, in all time zones, or rather, in no time zone at all. Since the station operated on Universal Standard Time that matched no natural rhythm, her body recognized. Her eyelids grew heavier. The ambient temperature was perfect, the seat surprisingly comfortable, and Ambassador Keelthor's voice had that particular monotonous quality that could lull a caffeinated hummingbird to sleep. Tivo noticed first. The small Keshari cub sat beside Lena's chair, officially designated as her cultural exchange companion, but functionally her assistant and, increasingly, her self-appointed guardian. His species resembled what humans might describe as a cross between a red panda and a fox. With rust-colored fur, enormous amber eyes, and a tail that currently twitched with concern, he watched Lena's chin drop toward her chest, saw her breathing slow and deepen. Around them, the other delegates continued their endless debate, oblivious. The Vraxians were arguing with the Thelnori now, something about tariff percentages and fuel subsidies. Lena's head tilted sideways. A soft snore escaped her lips. Tivo's ears perked up. In Keshari culture, sleep was sacred, a vulnerable state that the pack protected fiercely. The fact that Lena would allow herself to sleep here, surrounded by strangers, spoke to either absolute trust or absolute exhaustion, probably the latter. Given how hard humans push themselves, he'd been studying human behavior for 6 months now, ever since his assignment to the human delegation. What he'd learned had both fascinated and horrified him. Humans operated on insufficient sleep as a matter of routine. They drank stimulant beverages to stay awake, then consumed depressants to force sleep when their schedules allowed. They ignored their body's signals for rest the way one might ignore an annoying advertisement. And yet, they were brilliant, creative, resilient. They'd gone from planetary surface to galactic council in less time than most species took to develop interstellar communication. They'd done it while apparently forgetting that sleep was a biological necessity, not a suggestion. Another snore, louder this time. Ambassador Keelthor paused mid-sentence, his 3 eyes swiveled toward the human section. Several other delegates turned to look. The hive mind representative began emitting disapproving clicks. Tivo didn't hesitate. He stood up on his hind legs, grabbed the thermal shawl from the back of Lena's chair, and carefully draped it over her head and shoulders, creating a small, dark tent around her sleeping form. Then he climbed onto the armrest of her chair, planted himself between her and the rest of the chamber, and fixed the assembled delegates with his most serious expression. "Shh," he said, pressing a small paw to his mouth. His translator broadcast the sound clearly through the chamber. "Sleeping time is not disrupt time." The council chamber fell silent. 73 species worth of delegates stared at the small cub who had just shushed an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Ambassador Keelthor's scales rippled with indignation. "This is highly irregular. We are discussing matters of sleeping time," Tivo repeated, his tone brooking no argument. "Human heart has not slept in 1.33 standard cycles. Human biology requires sleep every single cycle. She has answered 14 emergency calls, prevented 2 wars, and fixed your environmental systems." He pointed a claw at Keelthor. "You sleep every cycle in your thermal pod. Why should she not sleep now?" The hive mind representative's clicking intensified. "The disrespect to this council." "The disrespect," Tivo interrupted, his tail lashing, "is making any being work until they collapse. This is what humans do. They break themselves to fix everyone else's problems, and you let them, because it is convenient." Under her shawl, Lena shifted slightly, mumbling something incoherent about reactor cores. She didn't wake. A new voice entered the discussion. Elder Mirash, of the Contemplative Order. A species known for their wisdom and extremely long lifespan, spoke from her hovering meditation sphere. The cub speaks truth. We have observed this pattern in humanity. They give until they have nothing left to give, then give more. Perhaps it is we who have been disrespectful, expecting them to function by our standards while ignoring their needs. Kelthor's scales settled. The human could have requested a recess. Would you have granted it? Tivo challenged. Or would you have said the emergency was too important, the timeline too critical, the matter too urgent, as you have said 14 times in the past 3 cycles when Human Heart requested rest periods for her team? Silence. Sleeping time is not disrupt time, Tivo repeated softly. It is sacred time. It is healing time. It is survival time. If you cannot respect this, you do not deserve what humans give you. Elder Mirash's meditation sphere glowed softly. I move that we recess for 6 standard hours. When we reconvene, perhaps we will all think more clearly. The motion passed unanimously. As the delegates filed out, many paused to look at the sleeping human and her small, fierce protector. Some showed approval, others embarrassment. The Vraxian ambassador paused longest, his scales shifting through several colors before he finally nodded once to Tivo and departed. When the chamber was empty save for them, Tivo settled more comfortably on the armrest, his tail curling around Lena's arm. He would guard her sleep as his ancestors had guarded their pack. Because humans, he had learned, were terrible at protecting themselves from themselves. But that's what allies were for. Under the shawl, Lena slept on, finally getting the rest she needed, and in the quiet chamber, a small cub kept watch, proving that sometimes the youngest and smallest among them understood what really mattered most: human dignity, human health, human sleep, sacred time, not disrupt time.